Imagine holding more than a century of history in the palm of your hand, stories of nations rising, languages shaping identity, and eras long gone. Today, we're exploring three rare coins that silently witnessed South Africa's journey: the humble 1961 1 cent, the regal 1893 1-pound gold coin, and the 1965 Afrikaans 5 cents. Each coin isn't just metal, it's a time machine. Let's unlock the stories they've been keeping for decades. What if I told you that a single coin sitting in someone's attic right now could be worth over $2 million? A coin so rare that only a handful exist on the entire planet. A coin that witnessed the birth of a nation, survived wars, escaped from royal palaces, and disappeared for decades at a time. The 1893 South African pond isn't just a piece of gold. It's a treasure that collectors would sacrifice everything to own. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why this small disc of metal has sparked bidding wars, international intrigue, and obsessions that span generations. Picture this. It's 1893 in Pretoria, South Africa. The air is thick with tension as the South African Republic, also known as the Transvaal Republic, fights to establish itself as a legitimate independent nation. The British Empire looms on every horizon, and President Paul Kruger knows that nations are defined not just by borders and armies, but by symbols of sovereignty. One of the most powerful symbols? Their own currency. Enter the one-pound coin, struck in gleaming 22-karat gold, weighing exactly 7.98 grams with a diameter of 22.05 millimeters. The obverse features the weathered, determined face of President Paul Kruger himself, designed by German medalist Otto Schultz. His portrait radiates authority and defiance. The reverse displays the coat of arms of the South African Republic, complete with the Dutch motto that translates to "Unity makes strength." This wasn't just money. This was a declaration of independence stamped in gold. The year 1893 was crucial because it marked only the second year these ponds were produced at the brand-new Pretoria Mint. Before 1892, the first ponds had actually been struck in Berlin because South Africa didn't yet have the facilities. But by 1893, they had their own mint, their own dies, and their own destiny. The Witwatersrand gold rush had flooded the region with precious metals, and President Kruger seized the opportunity to create a coin that matched British sovereigns in specification, but screamed independence in every inscription. Instead of English, the text proudly read in Afrikaans. Instead of a British monarch, it bore the face of a Boer leader who would soon be at war with the British Empire. Now here's where things get shocking. While tens of thousands of ponds were minted in later years, the 1893 coins are significantly rarer. Many were melted down during economic crises. Others were lost in the chaos of the Anglo-Boer War that would erupt just 6 years later. Still more vanished into private collections, never to be seen again. Finding a 1893 pond in any condition is like discovering a needle in a haystack the size of an entire continent. But finding one in excellent condition, that's nearly impossible. Most survivors show heavy wear from circulation, damage from mishandling, or deterioration from decades of neglect. The few that remain in near mint or uncirculated condition are the unicorns of the numismatic world. And if you think the regular 1893 pond is rare, let me tell you about its legendary cousin. While the 1893 coins are scarce, the most famous South African pond of all time is the 1898 single 9 variant. This coin has a fascinating story. In 1898, the mint prepared to strike 1899 ponds, but British forces seized the dies in what is now Mozambique. Desperate, the mintmaster manually overstamped a single-digit 9 onto an 1898 coin. Only one such coin exists in the entire world. In January 2025, that single 9 sold at auction for an earth-shattering $2.16 million, making it the most valuable South African coin ever sold. It had previously changed hands for increasing amounts, starting at just a few thousand rand in 1969 and climbing to over 20 million rand in private sales. So what makes these ponds worth so much? First, there's the intrinsic gold value. Each coin contains 0.2354 troy ounces of pure gold. At current gold prices, that alone gives the coin a base value of around $800. But here's the thing. Collectors don't care about just the gold. They care about the story, the rarity, and the condition. A common date pond in worn condition might sell for just slightly above its gold content. But a rare date like 1893 in high grade can command thousands of dollars, potentially tens of thousands depending on preservation and historical significance. Coins graded by professional services like NGC or PCGS, which authenticate and assess condition, typically sell for significant premiums. The grading scale runs from poor to mint state, and every single point higher on that scale can mean thousands of dollars in additional value. Collectors obsess over tiny details. Is the wagon on the reverse single-shafted or double-shafted? The 1893 ponds feature the single-shaft variety, which helps authenticate them. Are there any mint marks or anomalies? Has the coin been cleaned, which destroys its natural patina and crushes its value? Has it been mounted in jewelry, which leaves permanent damage? These factors transform a coin from a modest treasure into either a fortune or a disappointment. And here's something that will shock you. The South African pond market has exploded in recent years. As more collectors recognize the historical importance of these coins, as African numismatics gains international attention, and as gold prices climb, these ponds have become investment vehicles as much as collectibles. But we haven't even touched on the most compelling reason these coins matter: the history they represent. The 1893 pond was struck during a brief moment of Boer independence, a time when Afrikaners believed they had carved out their own nation from the African wilderness. Within 7 years, that dream would be shattered by the Second Boer War. The British would invade, concentration camps would be established, and the South African Republic would cease to exist. These ponds are survivors of a nation that no longer exists, tangible links to a controversial but undeniably significant period of South African and world history. When you hold a 1893 pond, you're holding a piece of the resistance against British imperialism. You're touching gold that may have passed through the hands of Boer commandos, British soldiers, African laborers, or international diplomats. And the journey of these coins doesn't end with the war. After 1902, many ponds were circulated as regular currency or hoarded as precious metal. Some made their way to Europe, ending up in the collections of royalty like King Farouk of Egypt, whose massive coin collection included spectacular South African pieces. Others stayed in South Africa, cherished by families as heirlooms or hidden during times of political upheaval. The fact that any survive at all is remarkable. Wars, economic depressions, political revolutions, all of these historical forces worked against the preservation of these coins. Yet here they are, testaments to human desire to preserve history in portable, beautiful form. Why do collectors lose their minds over these coins? Because numismatics isn't just about money. It's about time travel. Every pond tells a story, and the 1893 examples tell one of the most dramatic stories in coinage history. Serious collectors have been known to spend decades hunting for specific dates, specific grades, specific varieties. They'll travel across continents, spend fortunes on authentication, and compete fiercely at auctions for the privilege of ownership. The South African Pond series, and particularly the rare dates like 1893, represent the holy grail for collectors focused on African or Commonwealth coinage. And the competition is brutal. With so few examples available and so many collectors pursuing them, prices have nowhere to go but up. Add in the fact that these coins are legally considered investment gold in many jurisdictions, meaning they're VAT exempt, and you have an asset that combines historical significance, aesthetic beauty, precious metal content, and tax advantages. It's no wonder that financial advisors increasingly recommend rare coins like the 1893 pond as part of diversified investment portfolios. Unlike stocks or real estate, you can hold a pond in your hand. Unlike digital assets, it can't be hacked or erased. It's tangible, beautiful, and has maintained value for over a century. Here's something crucial you need to know. The popularity and value of these ponds has attracted counterfeiters. Fake ponds exist, some so well made that only experts can detect them. This is why professional grading and authentication is essential. Services like NGC and PCGS don't just grade condition, they verify authenticity using advanced technology, metallurgical analysis, and expert knowledge. A certified slabbed coin isn't just protected in a sealed holder. It comes with a guarantee that what you're buying is genuine. Uncertified coins, especially from unknown sellers, carry enormous risk. Remember, if you're paying thousands of dollars for what you believe is a rare 1893 pond, and it turns out to be a clever fake, you've lost everything. The counterfeiting problem is serious enough that experts recommend buying only from reputable dealers, insisting on professional grading, and educating yourself on the genuine article's characteristics. The weight should be exact. The dimensions should match specifications precisely. The details in Kruger's portrait, the arms on the reverse, the edge characteristics, all of these can reveal a fake to trained eyes. But even trained eyes can be fooled by sophisticated forgeries, which is why third-party authentication has become non-negotiable in the rare coin market. So what's happening in the market right now? As we move through 2025, South African ponds are experiencing renewed interest. The record-breaking sale of the single 9 1898 pond in January 2025 has focused international attention on the entire series. Collectors and investors are taking a fresh look at these historical treasures, and prices for rare dates like 1893 are rising accordingly. The combination of gold's strong performance, increased interest in African numismatics, and the undeniable historical importance of these coins has created a perfect storm of demand. Auction houses report fierce bidding for high-grade examples. Dealers can barely keep rare dates in stock, and private collectors are increasingly reluctant to part with their treasures, knowing that replacement may be impossible. If you happen to own a 1893 pond, now might be an excellent time to have it professionally graded and evaluated. Even if you inherited what you thought was just an old gold coin, it could be worth substantially more than you imagine. And if you're considering entering the market as a buyer, understand that you're competing with serious collectors, investors, and institutions worldwide. Do your research, work with reputable dealers, insist on certified coins, and be prepared to move quickly when the right opportunity presents itself. Because rare coins like the 1893 pond don't stay available for long. The South African 1 pond of 1893 is more than metal and money. It's a portal to a dramatic moment in history, a work of art in miniature, a store of wealth that has survived wars and revolutions, and a testament to the human obsession with preserving the past. Whether you're a seasoned collector, a curious investor, or simply someone fascinated by the stories coins tell, the 1893 pond deserves your attention. These coins won't become more common. They won't become less historically significant. And if current market trends continue, they certainly won't become cheaper. The question isn't whether these coins are valuable. The question is whether you'll be fortunate enough to own one before they disappear entirely into the vaults of museums and private collections, never to be seen again. If this video opened your eyes to the incredible world of rare coins and the fortunes hiding in plain sight, do me a favor. Smash that like button to help others discover these amazing stories. Subscribe to this channel because we're diving deep into more numismatic treasures, hidden fortunes, and historical mysteries that will blow your mind. And share this video with anyone who loves history, investing, or the thrill of discovering that something ordinary might actually be extraordinary. You never know who might have a forgotten treasure gathering dust in a drawer. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the most valuable things in the world fit in the palm of your hand. What if a nickel coin worth 5 cents could actually be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars? Right now, in drawers across South Africa and around the world, there are 1965 5-cent coins hiding a secret that most people will never notice: a doubled die. Extra stamping. Mirror images where there should be single lines. These aren't just manufacturing defects. They're legitimate treasures that collectors will pay serious money to own. One error coin with doubled stamping and unusual markings recently sold for $625, and that's just the beginning. By the time this video ends, you'll know exactly what to look for, why these errors happened, and how to identify a coin that could transform your spare change into serious cash. Transport yourself back to 1965, a pivotal moment in South African numismatic history. This was the year South Africa introduced its second decimal coinage series, completely redesigning the currency system that had only been established 4 years earlier in 1961. The original silver coins were expensive to produce and becoming impractical as silver prices climbed on international markets. The government made a decisive move, replacing the silver 5-cent pieces with new nickel coins. This wasn't just about saving money on precious metals. It was about creating a more sustainable currency system that could withstand economic fluctuations without forcing the government to constantly adjust metal content or face massive coin shortages. The new 1965 5-cent coin was made entirely of nickel, making it the first non-precious metal version of this denomination in the Republic's short history. The nickel 5-cent coin featured South Africa's national bird, the blue crane, which is listed as vulnerable by conservation organizations. This magnificent bird, known for its elegance and distinctive appearance, was chosen to represent the natural heritage of South Africa. On the obverse side, the coin displayed the portrait of Jan van Riebeeck, the controversial Dutch colonial administrator who founded Cape Town in 1652. His inclusion was deeply symbolic during the Apartheid era, representing the European colonial narrative that the ruling government wanted to promote. What makes the 1965 series particularly interesting is that coins were struck with 2 different language legends. Some bore the inscription in English reading South Africa, while others used the Afrikaans legend Suid-Afrika. This dual production was designed to respect both official languages of the time, though it notably excluded any African languages despite the majority population speaking indigenous tongues. The Afrikaans version carries special significance because it represented the language of the ruling National Party and the Afrikaner population who dominated the political landscape during Apartheid. For collectors today, both language versions are sought after, but errors and varieties in either version can command substantial premiums. Now here's where your heart should start pounding with excitement. During the minting process in 1965, something extraordinary happened at the South African Mint. Dies became misaligned, over-polished, or were struck multiple times, creating what numismatists call doubled die errors. These errors manifest in specific ways that are visible to the naked eye once you know what to look for. The most valuable and sought-after error involves doubling on the denomination marking and the designer's initials. A rare 1965 5-cent error showing doubled stamping on the 5 and C, along with TTSS instead of the normal TS designer initials below the crane, sold for R625. That's over 100 times the face value of the coin, and in some cases, depending on the severity and clarity of the error, prices can climb even higher. Think about what a double die actually means. When a coin die is manufactured, it goes through multiple stages of hubbing, where the design is impressed into the die steel. If the die shifts even slightly between impacts, or if it's polished and re-hubbed incorrectly, You get doubling in the design. This doubling appears as a shadow or echo of the letters, numbers, or design elements. On the 1965 5-cent Afrikaans coins, collectors specifically hunt for doubling on the inscription Suid Africa on the date 1965, on the denomination 5C, and critically on the designer's initials TS, which stand for Tommy Sassine, the coin designer. When these initials appear as TTSS instead of TS, you're looking at a significant mint error that transforms an ordinary coin into a collector's dream. The beauty of error coins is that they weren't intentionally created. The mint didn't decide to make special variants for collectors. These happened by accident during the production of millions of coins. Most error coins were caught during quality control and melted down. The few that escaped and entered circulation are the survivors, the ones that made it past inspection and into the hands of ordinary South Africans who had no idea they were carrying small fortunes in their pockets. Today, decades later, these error coins remain hidden in old collections, estate boxes, and forgotten drawers, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. So you're probably asking yourself right now, how exactly do I identify one of these valuable error coins? The process requires careful examination, good lighting, and ideally a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Start by examining the reverse side of the coin where the blue crane and the denomination appear. Look closely at the 5C marking. On a normal coin, the digits and letter will be crisp and singular. On a doubled die variety, you'll see a shadow or doubling effect. The 5 might appear slightly thicker or have a ghosting effect to one side. The letter C might show the same characteristics. This doubling occurs because the die struck the coin blank twice with a slight misalignment between strikes. Next, examine the designer's initials TS, which appear below the blue crane on the reverse. These tiny letters are crucial. On regular coins, you'll clearly see TS as 2 distinct letters. On the error variety, you might see additional letters creating TTSS, or you might see severe doubling that makes the initials look blurred or multiplied. This is your smoking gun, the clearest indicator that you're holding an error coin with significant value. The doubling might also appear on the obverse side. Check the legend Suid Africa carefully. Look at each letter under magnification. If you see any doubling, shadowing, or multiplication of the letters, you've potentially found a valuable variety. It's important to understand the difference between true doubled die errors and other conditions that might appear similar. Wear and circulation damage can sometimes create the illusion of doubling. Strike doubling, which occurs when the coin bounces slightly during striking, can create a flat, shelf-like appearance that resembles doubling but is less valuable. True doubled die errors show rounded, raised doubling with clear separation between the original and doubled images. Machine doubling or strike doubling typically shows a flat, spread appearance without the raised, distinct characteristics of genuine hub doubling. This is why authentication by professionals is crucial when dealing with potential high-value errors. Understanding these coins requires acknowledging the complex and troubling historical context in which they were created. 1965 was deep into the Apartheid era, a system of institutionalized racial segregation and oppression that the international community now recognizes as a crime against humanity. The imagery on these coins, from John van Riebeeck to the dual English and Afrikaans legends, reflected the ideology of the ruling government. Van Riebeeck represented the colonial founding myth that justified European domination. The exclusion of African languages from the coinage demonstrated whose voices and identities the government valued. The blue crane, while a beautiful symbol of South African wildlife, was chosen by a government that simultaneously denied basic human rights to the majority of the population. For modern collectors and historians, these coins serve as important artifacts of a dark period. They're physical evidence of how governments use everyday objects like currency to reinforce political narratives and shape national identity. The errors and varieties in these coins take on additional meaning when viewed through this lens. They represent unintended flaws in a system that prized control and uniformity. Every doubled die, every misaligned strike, every error that escaped quality control was a tiny crack in the facade of perfection that the apartheid government tried to project. Today, collecting these coins doesn't mean endorsing the ideology they represent. It means preserving evidence of that era, studying it, learning from it, and ensuring that history isn't forgotten or whitewashed. The transition from silver to nickel in 1965 also tells an economic story. Silver prices were rising globally, making it impractical to continue striking coins from precious metal. This same pattern played out in countries around the world during the 1960s. The United States eliminated silver from dimes and quarters in 1965. Canada made similar changes. These decisions reflected the end of commodity-backed coinage and the full transition to fiat currency systems where coins had value by government decree rather than by their intrinsic metal content. The 1965 South African 5 cent represents this global shift, a moment when currency became truly symbolic rather than valuable in and of itself. Let's talk about the financial reality of these coins. Standard 1965 5-cent coins in circulated condition are common and worth perhaps $1 or $2 at most, primarily to collectors filling date sets. Even uncirculated examples in perfect condition typically sell for just a few dollars unless they're proof strikes intended for collectors. But introduce an error, particularly a well-documented double die variety, and the value equation transforms completely. Error coins occupy a special category in numismatics because they're both rare and fascinating. They represent mistakes, anomalies, things that weren't supposed to happen, but did. The market for South African error coins has grown substantially in recent decades. As more collectors focus on African numismatics, as grading and authentication services become more accessible, and as information spreads through online communities and auction sites, awareness of these varieties increases. The sale of the 1965 double die 5 cent for over $600 demonstrates real market demand. That's not a theoretical value or a hopeful asking price. That's an actual transaction where someone paid real money for a coin they believed was worth that amount. For collectors and investors, error coins offer several advantages. They're affordable entry points into the hobby compared to gold or silver coins. They're historically significant and interesting to study. They're rare enough to maintain value, but not so rare that finding examples is impossible. Authentication and grading are critical factors in determining value. A raw, ungraded error coin might sell for modest amounts because buyers can't be certain it's genuine or what condition grade it deserves. That same coin, authenticated and graded by a reputable service like NGC or SANGS, commands significantly higher prices because the uncertainty is removed. The grading encapsulation also protects the coin from further handling damage, preserving its condition for future generations. For anyone who believes they've found a valuable error variety, the cost of professional grading is a worthwhile investment. The grading fee might be $50 to $100, but if it confirms a valuable error, the coin's market value could be 10 or 20 times that amount. The 1965 Afrikaans 5 cent is part of a larger series that ran from 1965 through 1969, after which the design changed significantly. Understanding this series helps collectors appreciate the context and rarity factors. The nickel coins from 1965 to 1969 all featured Jan van Riebeeck on the obverse and the blue crane on the reverse. Starting in 1970, the design changed to feature the South African coat of arms instead of Van Riebeeck's portrait. This makes the 1965 to 1969 coins a distinct collecting category. Within that category, the 1965 date is particularly significant as the first year, making it naturally more collectible than later dates. First-year issues always attract premium collector interest. Both English and Afrikaans legend versions were produced each year, though not necessarily in equal quantities. Determining exact mintage figures for each language variety can be challenging because historical records aren't always complete or accessible. What we know is that millions of these coins were produced and circulated actively throughout South Africa. They were used daily for small purchases, deposited in banks, hoarded during economic uncertainties, and eventually many were withdrawn from circulation when the design changed in 1990 to a larger copper-plated steel version. The coins that survive in collections today represent a small fraction of the original mintage, and within that survivor population, error varieties represent an even smaller fraction. For collectors building sets, the goal might be to acquire one example of each date and variety in the nickel blue crane series. This means obtaining both English and Afrikaans versions for each year from 1965 through 1969 in the best condition affordable. Advanced collectors then hunt for varieties and errors within those dates. The double die varieties, off-center strikes, wrong planche errors, and other anomalies become the ultimate acquisitions that elevate a good collection to a great one. The 1965 Afrikaans double die represents exactly this kind of prize, the coin that transforms a complete set into something truly special and valuable. As with any valuable collectible, the market for error coins attracts both genuine discoveries and, unfortunately, fraudulent attempts. Some sellers might deliberately alter coins to simulate errors, or might misidentify post-strike damage as legitimate mint errors. Protecting yourself requires education and caution. First, buy from reputable dealers with established track records. Check their references, read reviews, and verify their credentials with numismatic organizations. Second, insist on third-party authentication for high-value purchases. Don't take a seller's word that a coin is a rare error. Demand certification from recognized grading services. Third, educate yourself by studying authenticated examples of known errors. Learn what genuine doubling looks like compared to damage or artificial alterations. Be suspicious of deals that seem too good to be true. If someone is offering a supposedly rare error coin for a fraction of its stated value, ask yourself why. Legitimate dealers and collectors know what their coins are worth and price them accordingly. Be wary of sellers who pressure you to buy quickly or who discourage you from seeking expert opinions. Legitimate sellers want informed buyers because it leads to fewer disputes and better long-term relationships. Look for red flags like reluctance to provide clear photographs, unwillingness to allow inspection before purchase, or vague descriptions that avoid specific details about the error characteristics. When examining a potential error coin in person, use proper magnification and lighting. A 10x jeweler's loupe is the minimum for serious examination. Look for tooling marks or scratches that might indicate artificial alteration. Genuine mint errors show characteristics consistent with mechanical processes, not deliberate handwork. The doubling on a true double die will be uniform and consistent wherever it appears, following the mechanics of how dies and hubs work. Artificial doubling created with tools will show irregularities, directional scratches, and inconsistencies that reveal human intervention. When in doubt, pay for expert opinion. The cost of professional authentication is always less than the cost of buying a fake coin at an inflated price. What makes coins like the 1965 5-cent Afrikaans doubled die so exciting is the accessibility of the hunt. Unlike rare gold coins that only wealthy collectors can afford, or ancient coins that require international travel and connections, these nickel 5 cents are potentially available to anyone. They might be sitting in your grandmother's coin collection. They might turn up at an estate sale or flea market. They might be mixed in with common coins at an antique shop where the dealer doesn't specialize in South African numismatics. Every collector has heard stories of incredible finds. Rare coins purchased for pennies because the seller didn't recognize what they had. The reality is that most searches will come up empty. Most 1965 5-cent coins you encounter will be common, regular strikes with no errors and minimal collector value. But that's what makes the discovery of a genuine error so thrilling. You've beaten the odds. You've found something that thousands of other people missed. You've identified value where others saw only old change. And beyond the financial value, there's the intellectual satisfaction of applying knowledge to solve a puzzle. Learning about doubled dies, understanding how minting errors occur, developing the visual skills to spot doubling under magnification. These are all valuable competencies that apply across all areas of coin collecting. The community aspect of error coin collecting shouldn't be underestimated either. Online forums, social media groups, and local coin clubs bring together people who share this passion. When you find a potential error, you can share photos with experienced collectors who can offer opinions and advice. When you make a significant discovery, the community celebrates with you. And when you're learning, there are always people willing to teach, to share resources, and to help you develop your skills. Coin collecting at its best is a collaborative hobby where knowledge is freely shared and everyone benefits from the collective expertise of the community. The 1965 South African 5-cent coin with Afrikaans legend represents so much more than its 5-cent face value. It's a window into a complex historical period. It's a beautiful example of mid-century coinage design. It's a potential investment that has maintained and grown its value over decades. And for the error varieties, it's a genuine treasure hunt where knowledge and careful examination can uncover coins worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. The doubled die varieties with their multiplied letters, doubled denominations, and mysterious TTSS markings are out there right now, waiting in drawers and boxes and old collections. The question isn't whether these coins exist. We know they do because examples have been authenticated and sold. The question is whether you'll be the one to find the next one. Every single person watching this video now has the knowledge to identify these errors. You know what to look for, you know why they're valuable, you know where they might be hiding. All that's left is the searching. Check your own old coins if you have access to South African change from the 1960s. Ask older relatives if they kept coins from that era. Visit coin shops and shows armed with your new knowledge. Use magnification and patience to examine every 1965 5-cent that crosses your path. And if you find what you think might be an error variety, document it thoroughly, avoid cleaning or handling it excessively, and get it professionally authenticated. You could be holding a small fortune in the palm of your hand. If this video has opened your eyes to the hidden value in ordinary-looking coins and inspired you to start your own treasure hunt, show your appreciation by hitting that like button. It helps this content reach more people who might benefit from this knowledge. Subscribe to this channel because we're continuing to explore rare coins, valuable errors, and numismatic mysteries from around the world. These videos could literally change your financial situation if you discover one of these treasures. And please share this video with anyone who has old South African coins, anyone interested in collecting, or anyone who loves the thrill of finding hidden value in unexpected places. The next major discovery could come from someone watching this video right now, and it could be you. Thanks for joining me on this journey through South African numismatic history. And remember, sometimes the most valuable things in life are hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone with the knowledge and patience to recognize them. Happy hunting! Imagine checking your old coin jar right now and discovering a single penny worth $40,000. Not a gold coin, not a silver dollar, just a humble 1-cent piece that millions of people threw into drawers, spent on candy, or tossed aside as worthless. The 1961 South African 1-cent looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. But hidden among over 50 million regular coins, there are exactly 80 rare variants that collectors are desperate to find. Only 12 have been officially discovered and graded. That means 68 of these treasures are still out there, possibly sitting in your grandfather's collection, buried in an old purse, or waiting in an antique shop. And you're about to learn exactly what makes this coin one of the most explosive opportunities in South African numismatics. Let's travel back to 1961, one of the most significant years in South African history. On the 14th of February, South Africa introduced an entirely new currency system, abandoning the British pound in favor of the rand. This wasn't just about changing money. This was a declaration of independence. Just months later, on the 31st of May, South Africa officially became a republic, severing its final political ties with Great Britain and the Commonwealth. The timing was deliberate and symbolic. The new coins were designed to represent a new identity, a new vision, and a complete break from colonial rule. Every denomination featured distinctly South African imagery rather than British monarchs. The 1-cent coin became the workhorse of this new currency system. The coin was made of brass, part of South Africa's first decimal coinage, and was only issued between 1961 and 1964. Each coin weighed 9.42 grams with a diameter of 31 millimeters, making it substantial enough to feel valuable in the hand despite its low denomination. The obverse featured the stern, determined face of Jan van Riebeeck, and here's where the story gets fascinating. Van Riebeeck was a Dutch colonial administrator and the founder of Cape Town, a controversial historical figure who many Afrikaners considered their founding father. His image on the coin sent a clear message about who controlled South Africa's narrative during the Apartheid era. The reverse of the coin displayed a covered wagon, specifically an ox wagon of the type used by voortrekkers during the Great Trek. This wasn't randomly chosen imagery. The wagon represented the pioneering spirit, the journey into the interior, and the establishment of Boer republics. Surrounding the wagon were the inscriptions in both English and Afrikaans, reflecting the dual language policy, but notably excluding any African languages. The motto read, "Unity is strength," a phrase that would take on increasingly dark irony as apartheid policies intensified throughout the decade. After just 4 years of circulation, these large brass coins were replaced in 1965 with a smaller bronze version, making the 1961 to 1964 series particularly distinctive in South African numismatic history. Here's where your heart should start racing. The South African Mint produced over 52 million 1-cent coins in 1961. Most are worth practically nothing today, maybe $1 or $2 in uncirculated condition. But collectors discovered something extraordinary. There exists a rare 1961 variety with full ground cover under the wagon on the reverse, and Hearn estimates the original mintage to be around 80, with only 12 known examples. Let me explain what this means. On regular 1961 1-cent coins, if you examine the area underneath the ox wagon between the wheels, you'll see mostly empty space. It's relatively clean, with just the basic outline of the wagon visible. But on the full ground variety, that entire area is filled with detailed ground texture. It looks almost like a dog lying under the wagon, or like grass and earth have been added to the design. This wasn't an intentional design change. This was a dye variety, an anomaly that occurred during the minting process. Why did this happen? During coin production, dyes can develop cracks, clash marks, or fill in with metal deposits. Sometimes they're repolished incorrectly. Other times, a different hub is used that creates subtle variations. In the case of the 1961 full ground variety, experts believe a unique dye state created this distinctive look. What matters is this. The mint didn't produce these intentionally, they occurred by accident, and very few were struck before the dye was replaced or the variety was noticed and corrected. The result? One listing shows an NGC graded example priced at R12,000, while an MS64 graded specimen had an asking price starting at R65,000. That's $40,000 or more for a coin that people once used to buy bread and milk. The numismatic community is obsessed with these coins, and for good reason. Think about the mathematics. 80 coins were supposedly minted in this variety. 12 have been confirmed and recorded. That leaves 68 unaccounted coins somewhere in the world. Unlike gold ponds that people treasured and protected, 1-cent coins were circulation currency. They passed through thousands of hands. They ended up in change jars, piggy banks, old wallets, estate sales, and attic boxes. Many were probably thrown away or lost. But statistically, dozens must still exist, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to spot them. This is the dream scenario for treasure hunters and coin collectors. The barrier to entry is low because anyone might have one of these coins. The potential reward is astronomical because so few are known. Professional coin dealers in South Africa now specifically advertise that they're buying 1961 full-ground 1-cent coins, and they're offering serious money. Graded examples by NGC with rarities noted as only 12 known in the world are being actively marketed. Auction houses have taken notice. Online forums buzz with collectors sharing photos, debating whether newly discovered examples are genuine varieties or just well-worn regular strikes. The authentication process has become crucial because the potential value attracts both genuine discoveries and, unfortunately, people who might deliberately alter coins or misidentify damage as a rare variety. This is why professional third-party grading services like NGC and SANGS have become essential in the South African market. So how do you actually identify one of these treasures? You need to examine the reverse of the coin very carefully. Flip the coin over so you're looking at the covered wagon. Focus specifically on the area between the two wheels and underneath the wagon body. On a regular 1961 1-cent, this area will be relatively empty, showing just the basic wagon outline and wheels with minimal detail underneath. On the full-ground variety, this entire space is filled with texture that resembles ground or earth. The detail extends continuously from one side to the other, creating what some describe as a solid mass under the wagon. Some collectors say it looks like an animal lying there. Others describe it as unusually heavy shading or a filled-in appearance. The key is comparison. If you have access to a regular 1961 1-cent, place it next to the coin you're examining. The difference should be immediately obvious once you know what to look for. However, be cautious. Environmental damage, wear patterns, and dirt accumulation can sometimes create confusing appearances. A coin that's been heavily circulated might have areas that appear filled in due to wear rather than being a genuine variety. This is why collectors recommend using magnification, good lighting, and ideally, comparison with authenticated examples. If you genuinely believe you've found a full-ground variety, the smart move is to have it professionally authenticated and graded. The cost of grading is minimal compared to the potential value if it's genuine. What makes this coin even more compelling is its historical backdrop. 1961 was a pivotal year globally, and particularly in Africa. This was the height of the Cold War. African nations were gaining independence from European colonial powers at a rapid pace. South Africa was moving in the opposite direction, doubling down on apartheid policies and international isolation. These coins were minted during a time when apartheid political ideology dominated South African society, with laws that enforced racial segregation and oppressed Africans and other people of color. The choice to feature Jan van Riebeeck, a symbol of European colonization, was deeply political. The covered wagon imagery romanticized the Voortrekker experience while ignoring the displacement and suffering of indigenous peoples. For modern collectors and historians, these coins represent a complex and troubling period. They're artifacts of a system that the world now recognizes as a crime against humanity, yet they're also important historical documents. They show us what the apartheid government valued, what symbols they chose to promote, and how they tried to shape national identity through something as mundane as pocket change. Owning and studying these coins doesn't mean endorsing the ideology they represent. It means preserving evidence of that era, learning from it, and ensuring that history isn't forgotten or sanitized. The full ground variety adds another layer, being an accidental deviation from the official propaganda message, an unintended variation in a system that prized uniformity and control. Let's talk money. Why would someone pay tens of thousands of dollars for a 1-cent coin? Because rarity creates value, and nothing is rarer in South African numismatics than a coin where only 12 examples are confirmed to exist. Compare this to other famous rare coins. The 1933 double eagle sold for millions. The 1804 silver dollar commands astronomical prices. These coins are valuable not because of their metal content, but because of their scarcity and the stories they tell. The 1961 full-ground 1 cent is following the same trajectory. As more collectors become aware of the variety, as grading becomes more standardized, and as examples are certified and publicized, the value will only increase. There's also the chase factor. Collectors love the possibility that an undiscovered example might still be out there. Unlike coins where all known specimens are locked away in museums or major collections, the full-ground variety could genuinely still be sitting in someone's drawer. This accessibility creates excitement and drives interest. Every South African who has old coins is now checking their collections. International dealers are importing bulk lots of South African coins, hoping to find that needle in the haystack. The market is active, competitive, and growing. For investors, rare coins offer advantages over stocks or real estate. They're portable, durable, and have maintained value across centuries. A coin that survives from 1961 will likely survive another 60 years. Political instability, economic crashes, and currency devaluations don't affect the numismatic value of a rare coin the same way they affect paper money or bank deposits. The 1961 1 cent is just one part of a fascinating series. The first decimal coinage of South Africa included half cent, 1 cent, 2.5 cents, 5 cents, 10 cents, 20 cents, 50 cents, and various larger denominations. Each tells a story. The silver coins from this era have additional value from their precious metal content. The 1 cent stands out because it was the most widely circulated, meaning millions of people handled these coins daily. Yet the full-ground variety remained largely unknown for decades. Collectors who focus on South African coins often try to complete sets, acquiring one example of each date and denomination. Varieties and errors become the ultimate goals for advanced collectors who already have the standard pieces. The transition from the large brass coins to smaller bronze versions in 1965 created a natural collecting category. Sets of 1961 to 1964 coins are popular because they represent that brief first chapter of the Republic's decimal currency. But within that already specific category, the full-ground variety is the crown jewel, the coin that transforms a nice collection into something museum-worthy. Understanding this context helps explain why even modest collectors are willing to pay significant premiums for varieties. It's not just about the coin itself, but about what it represents in the bigger picture of South African numismatic history. If you think you've found a full-ground variety, or if you're considering purchasing one, authentication is absolutely critical. The high values involved have attracted counterfeiters and unscrupulous sellers. Some might artificially fill in the area under the wagon to simulate the variety. Others might misidentify environmental damage or unusual wear patterns as the rare variety. This is where professional grading services earn their fees. Companies like NGC and SANGS examine coins under high magnification, compare them to reference collections, and issue certificates of authenticity. A coin encapsulated in a graded holder with a label confirming it as a full-ground variety is worth substantially more than a raw coin making the same claim. The grading scale runs from poor condition up through about good, good, very good, fine, very fine, extremely fine, about uncirculated, and then into the mint state grades from MS-60 to MS-70. For the full-ground variety, condition matters enormously. A heavily worn example might still be worth several $1,000s simply for being the rare variety. But an example graded MS-63 or higher could be worth 10 times as much because high-grade examples are even rarer than the variety itself. Think about it. These coins circulated actively. Most surviving examples show significant wear. Finding one in near-mint condition is extraordinarily difficult. Collectors compete fiercely for high-grade examples, driving prices into the stratosphere. Now for the hard truth. Most 1961 South African 1-cent coins you encounter will be the common variety worth $1 or $2. The vast majority of people who check their old coins will be disappointed. The full-ground variety is genuinely rare. If you find one, you've beaten incredible odds. But the search itself is worthwhile because the potential payoff is so substantial. Even if you don't find the rare variety, you'll learn about coin collecting, South African history, and the fascinating world of numismatics. You might discover other interesting varieties or coins with value you didn't know about. The broader lesson is that ordinary objects can hold extraordinary value if you know what to look for. The 1961 1-cent story reminds us that treasure doesn't always look like treasure. It's not always gold bars or diamond rings. Sometimes it's a brass coin that thousands of people handled without a second thought. Sometimes it's the anomaly, the mistake, the unintended variation that becomes more valuable than the perfect, planned design. In a world where everything is digital and disposable, physical coins remain tangible links to history, art, economics, and human stories. The fact that a humble penny can command $40,000 proves that we value these connections more than we might admit. The 1961 South African 1-cent with full-ground variety represents everything that makes coin collecting exciting. It combines history, mystery, rarity, and the tantalizing possibility that you might be the one to discover the next example. Somewhere out there, 68 of these coins still exist. They're not in bank vaults or museums. They're in estate sales, old collections, antique shops, and forgotten drawers. Every single person watching this video has the same chance to find one, regardless of wealth or connections. All you need is knowledge, patience, and a bit of luck. Whether you're a serious collector, a casual enthusiast, or someone who just inherited a box of old coins, now you know what to look for. Now you know why that ordinary-looking brass coin might be worth more than a year's salary. The hunt for rare coins is one of the last accessible treasure hunts in the modern world. You don't need expensive equipment or exotic travel. You just need to know what you're looking at. And after watching this video, you do. So here's what I want you to do right now. Check any old South African coins you have access to. Ask your grandparents, your parents, your older relatives if they kept coins from the 1960s. Visit coin dealers and antique shops with your newfound knowledge. And if you find what you think might be the rare variety, document it carefully, avoid cleaning or handling it excessively, and get it professionally authenticated. You could be holding a fortune in your hand. If this video opened your eyes to the hidden value in everyday objects and made you look at old coins differently, show your appreciation by smashing that like button. It helps others discover these incredible stories and opportunities. Subscribe to this channel because we're uncovering more numismatic treasures, rare varieties, and historical mysteries that could change your life. And please share this video with anyone who has old South African coins or loves treasure hunting, because spreading this knowledge might help someone discover one of those 68 missing full-ground varieties. The next major find could come from someone watching this video right now. Thanks for joining me on this journey through South African numismatic history. And remember, sometimes the most valuable things in life are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them.